Hello all and good evening everyone. I welcome you all to the Student Research Seminar 2022. I am Swati, your host for the evening. This is a monthly event which is aimed at showcasing the research that is being done by IISc onto a public platform. So today we have two very interesting talks lined up for you by the students of ECE department. Now, before we begin for the records, I would like to know how many of you are an IEEE member. May I please request all the IEEE members to present here to raise their hand so that we could get a count of it? Okay, thank you. You may unraise your hands. Now, without further ado, let's begin our first talk of the evening, which is titled Empirical Study of Traffic Generation for Data Center by Bidhov Bizar. Bidhov Bizar is currently a research student under Parimal Parag in the Department of Electrical Communication Engineering at Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru. He received his BTech degree from Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Kottayam in fall 2016. He conducts research in network theory and distributed inference and tracing. Welcome, Bidhov, to the seminar, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Swati. Let me share my screen. Let me know whether it's visible. Uh, is it visible now?
Yes, Bidhov, it's visible.
Okay, so since the crowd, we have very few number of participants. So at any point of time, if you have any doubt, you can stop me then and there and ask. No doubts that a stupid doubt because everyone is new to this field. So you can immediately ask it. Okay, so I'm going to start. uh, So my work is basically the empirical study of load generation for data center networks. So the first 10 slides, I would explain what's a data center, what are data center networks, and what are the types of load generation, and how did I study them, and how did I improve upon them for our networking community. So let's understand what is a data center. So a data center is a storage unit for storing digital data, and it's composed of servers and switches. When I mean server, it means a computer server, and switches, when I mean it's a network routing switches or router. Now, what is the use of a data center? So if you think about any data that has been stored online, if you're retrieving any file online and it's stored somewhere, it's irrespective of which company or which service provider you choose to, all the data, an example is Facebook, YouTube, Amazon Prime, anything you think about, all its data are stored somewhere, and there's a unique way they are stored because they require some properties, and all those services are called as data centers. And there are specific companies such as Cisco, uh, Aristo, which actually provide these data centers. Okay, and how you connect these servers and switches matter, and that's the way you connect them is called as an architecture, and each architecture has its own capabilities. FAT3, VL2, are some of those architectures which are actually currently being used in production for either communication purpose or for storage purpose or for compute purpose. Now, depending on same architecture, there can be different layers of switches and routers. So even the factory topology can have 3 layers of switches and 2 layers of switches. And depending upon the layer of switches, the complexity increases, but we also get some benefits such as more redundant parts. I'm sorry, I'm sick, so I might, if you're unable to understand something, please ask me to repeat. Okay, and so the last way is that depending upon the communication on what you want to do with the data center, there are different types of it. So if you are assuming if you are doing in data mining, if you are doing machine learning, all the data that you want to compute or you want to run through, it will be within the data center itself, because it will be redundant if you store all the data across a lot of data centers. And so because of the same reason, all the traffic or the communication would be within the data center itself. So that kind of communication we can call as intra data center. Now assume if you're hosting a website, if your company needs a front end, so most of the traffic will be coming from outside because clients will be coming and viewing your work. So for that, majority of the traffic will be coming from outside the data centers. So in that case, most of the type of communication is called as inter data center. Now, why is data centers a hot topic right now, and why are we working on it? So you can see that there are a lot of consumers of data center. So even after the COVID came into action, what happened was most of the companies started shifting their services online. So now more of data needs to be stored online, and hence we can think about all the companies which you are actually actively hosting their websites or even providing the service. They all need data centers, and these are the few of the major companies which we all know which are actually using data centers. Now let's talk about the topology of data center. Now this image which you're seeing does not have a particular name, but it's actually connected in a special way. You can see that there are three layers of switches or routers, and the top layer switch is called as a router or an L3 switch. Now it will have more capability, and lower the layers, the capabilities become lower. And the bottommost layer of the data center is basically where you have the servers. So the servers may either have the capability to compute or store. In very rare cases, the servers will have both capabilities. Now let's take a special case called as another topology called as clause or factor. Now what is a clause or factor topology? So the image that you're seeing is a four-array factor topology. When I say four-array, it means the parameter used to construct this topology is 4. Now, what does that mean? It means that you take any node of switch, each node will have 4 links going out or going in within it. So you can take any node, it's coming two links are going up, 2 links are coming down. And this is another reason why uh, the parameter matters. And in reality, when you actually think about it on on production, there are actually thousands of nodes. There are 1,000 servers. So when the parameter is actually 4, you can see that there are 16 servers here. And because of that, okay, so we were here in the clause or factory topology, and as I was explaining, for parameter k, we can actually see 16 servers, and as the number of servers increases, and as the parameter increases, we can actually see the servers increases. And in production, there are almost thousands or 10,000 servers which are actually required to store data. So when you say k is equal to 6, you can actually see there are actually 54 servers. Uh, and the network becomes more clumsy and messy. It's very difficult for us to keep track of the connections that's happening. So this is another reason why our study, at least for now, at this time frame, we are unable to do any actual. We cannot afford an actual test bed. We can so we are restricting our studies for simulation and emulation. Yeah, so this is basically the parameter of this topology is actually 6. I forgot to mention that. Now that was the basic idea of topology. And the second thing is, now let me just tell you about the traffic or traffic flow, the flow that we can expect in a data center. So, what is a flow? So, flow we can think about of any sequence of packets that can be defined using a source IP destination and a source port and destination and a protocol number. And how does it matter? You can think about a TCP, UDP, or HTTP, any of those protocols. So they will be considered as different flows. And then what is this? Then we need to classify these flows. So the easiest way to classify these flows are elephant and mice. So if you look at the image, what you can see is that the red ones are called as elephant flows. So if you think about if you're watching any YouTube videos or Amazon Prime videos, anything that would cause longer time duration. You can see that the x-axis of this image is time. So any flow that takes longer duration to finish can be considered as elephant flow. Now, as I mentioned earlier, YouTube videos, Amazon Prime videos, Netflix, anything you think about, the downloading a large file, all those all of them can be considered as elephant flow. And there is also a threshold for this for deciding an elephant flow, which I'll talk about later. Now you can think about a mice flow. So mice flow, if you're thinking about a cache, if you're thinking about a cache update or any mild software updates or even browsing the internet, all of them would not consume a lot of data. So all of them are short. All of those flows are short-lived. So they are called as mice flows. Now, now the threshold with respect to time that depends on elephant and mice flows can be decided by the network administrator. And because what is the use of this classification will come into picture, but there are also different ways to classify this network. So one of them is duration, as we seen in the previous slide. The next way is size. It's above some 10 kilobytes. So in 2015, Facebook came up with statistics, and they said that for them, if the flow size is about 10 kilobytes, then they consider it as an elephant flow. The ministry can choose whether it can be rate or business. So it doesn't matter. Actually, it actually matters how you choose elephant and mice, but it actually depending upon what you want to do with this classification, is basically responsible for this kind of classification. Now, what is the use of it, of this classification? If you see the first figure, figure A, you can see that a group of flows are going from site A to site B. Now, from site A to site B, if we do not know, if we are unable to classify elephant and mice flow, what happens is that all the data would just go through the 10 gigabit optical circuit and reach site B. Now, we cannot give any special consideration for flows that require longer duration. Because we have not, there is no way to identify them or give any special settings, any special privileges, such as if a flow requires longer time duration, the path that it takes should give them less number of obstacles. When I say obstacles, should have higher bandwidth. It should not there should not be any black hole. So there's a network black hole, etc. No, but if you take a look at the section B, you can see that after identifying the large flow and small flow, we can actually create a dedicated path for the large flows from going from site A to site B. Now we can actually give more importance and more money and more resources to this path where the large flows can be sent through, and we can actually use used cables, or we can actually reduce the resources allocated for the mice flows, because we don't expect lot of traffic in the mice flows. And as per the literature, they say that in a network we can actually expect only 5% or less than 5% or 1% of the traffic to be mice flows. So we don't need actually so much of mice flows. Now this is the beginning part. So these are the prerequisites. Now I'll start. So if you have any doubts up until now, please ask me. Now we are going to start our work. Okay, I think if you have any doubts, just stop me in between. Okay, so let's start. So our work, so in 2019, Simon actually, by Aditi Akela, he is actually one of a major contributor of the networking community. He came up with a paper called as Simon, and in this, he came up with a way to actually proactively figure out the congestion point, and after figuring out the congestion point, he also suggested what is the way to route them or calculate the size of the queue size of the network in a data center. Now that was actually impressive, and he actually used NS3 to do the same and show that the values of the NS3 are actually what they expected. So how did we start is that we actually wanted to do pretty much the same. We wanted to know how good their reconstruction was. So and regarding NS3, if you are in ECE department or at least in electronics and electrical, NS3 is one of the most open, is the most used networking software that actually is used across in research. It is free, it has a lot of bugs, but we still use it. So that's NS3 for us. So what I did was that I took the topology which they gave. Well, not I scaled down the topology. You can see that from the look of it, we can understand it is for the parameter for this is 4. And I took some reasonable assumptions for the networking architecture. So when I say the parameter, the number of pods or the parameter for topology to be 4, and the number of server nodes, that servers would be 60, the kind of communication is UDP, and I'm not going to explain the other point, but you just trust me on this that we took some reasonable assumptions and reasonable randomness function, and the application was for the application that we used was on off, which means that if you expect the traffic to start, it will get stopped. It will stop, and that will call as end of traffic, and we'll call that the end of traffic. And now there is something called as routing protocol. So routing protocol is called as the Nix vector. Now that Nix vector is actually ethnic to only the NS3. and that is the best routing vector that you can actually look forward. Because and Nix vector is not a real routing protocol. It's just basically a routing protocol only found in NS3. So what we did was pretty simple. So we start initiated one flow from the figure we can see from 28 to 34, and because of that we can actually see that they have chosen a path going from one core, and we rerun the setup multiple times to see whether they are actually taking different route, different architecture. So it's actually not. They're just using just one. So, so after this simulation, we checked out the end-to-end latency of the packet. It turns out end-to-end packet latency of this packet was pretty high for the first 18 packets, which also means that, which is pretty strange for us because in reality, only the first packet takes time, and as soon as the first packet moves or first packet goes, we see that the route or the routers get an idea about what should be the next hope and how to pass the packets, and from the second packet onwards the networking becomes pretty fast. But we can see that just for one flow without any other traffic, it just become it took almost 19 packets for uh, for the network to converge, for the communication to converge, and after that it was pretty much constant. We also plotted the link delay versus the link utilized, and we see that even though there are only 8 links utilized, there are the now there are almost very. Okay, so let me explain the graph. So the red is max, the blue is the average, and the green is minimum. So in this is the max. So minimum, when I say these are the link, the delay that is experienced by the packet when passed through one of the links. So we name this link as 34, 23, 33, 15, depending on. This means that this link has been connected between node 34 and node 23. Okay, now from this graph we observe that out of 8, 8 links are actually overutilized because the average is close to the maximum, and even though there are other links which also had some traffic, even though we did not initiate them, and 2 of those links faced very high delay, which was unexplainable. So we started doubting NS3. So, but we did not come up with any inference. So we sent 2 flows into the network, on outermost flow and the innermost flow, and we plotted. So we again saw pretty much the same thing. We saw that it took almost 40 packets for them to converge, which was again not at all realistic. We were expecting at least the same number of delays as we saw earlier, but it turns out every time a new flow comes into the picture, each flow takes almost 20 packets to converge. No, that was not at all not at all realistic, because we have friends in our industry which when we converse with them, they said pretty much the same, that this is not what actually happened. So we started questioning the frequency time response of NS3. Now, this was the link delay versus the link utilization of when there are 2 flows. Now, this was without any congested links. Now we can see we were expecting actually 16 links to have some congestion, but we actually saw almost 10 links with average congestion, and even without, with just 2 flows, with no 2 flows interacting with each other, colliding with each other, there was congestion. Again, we started doubting it, and now there were 4 links with very high delay. Now this, so we started losing faith in NS3 on how on the time of response. So we went ahead and conducted the research one more time. We sent 16 different things because the topology has 16 servers. So what we went ahead and did was we initiated single flows on every server, and we randomly chose the receiver and we sent the run. Now it became mayhem. The result was actually mayhem, because we can see that it took almost 137 packets for the network to actually for the traffic to converge, and we were expecting at least 16 different spikes, 16 different segments, but no, it was completely random, and we could not even find a way to explain what was the reason between so much of spikes, and there were so many rogue packets. And this is another congested links, and so many congestion was happening even without the purpose, and the number of congested links were actually, since we were expecting at least since there are 16 routers, we are expecting 16 spikes, but now the spikes, the most congested links have come down to only 10. So we actually lost faith in NS3, which is not an easy thing to believe, because NS3 is actually the most used network simulator. Sorry, network simulator. So we understood. So from this figure, we understood that the links that are show this high delay were actually the links that is connecting the edge and the bridge. The edge and the bridge. And now we again confirmed with the people in the networking community whether we see so much of congestion in edge and the bridge. They said no. They said that most of the traffic which we see is between the server and the bridge, or between the aggregation and the core. That's it. So the visual representation or the result which we get from the simulation framework is actually not at all helpful for our research. So our first solution was to actually come up with the routing vector for NS3, or to come up with the we came up with the simulation platform which actually has relatively better time response when we are simulating data centers. So we also understood that why there was so much of high delay in NS3. It's because of the routing vector, which what is next vector. So we understood that next vector is a very significant routing vector, and it uses breadth first search. So what it means breadth first search? It considers the whole network as a graph, and it assumes that the observer or the person who actually creates this network route, the route actually has a complete global picture of all the connected networks, which is not true in reality, because not necessarily that there are no global entities. If you are only observing an SDN, software defined network, they have a global view of the whole network. In a regular legacy routers and legacy switches, nobody has a clear picture of what are the connected entities. And they, so in this next vector, it's a unique way how these packets are sent between the client to the client to the server. So here there's something called the Nix vector is calculated, and when the Nix vector is sent within the packet, whenever the packet reaches a node, the node removes the Nix vector file, figure out what is the index given for that particular node, and then updates the Nix vector, and the packet is sent to the next hop. Now this does not happen in reality. In reality, the packet never knows what is the second hop. The packet just goes to the next hop. The next hop would have a calculator, which is the shortest next hop to the final destination, and the nodes will decide. But in this routing algorithm, it turns out that it's pre-calculated. So we understood that the Nix vector is the problem for whatever we are observing in our NS3. So this is the conclusion. So there are some benefits of NS3. We get the details of the congestion utilization. We can actually track the number of individual packets, and we can also see using logs the function calls for each event. But there are some limitations, as I mentioned. So for data center oriented, there are no specific routing algorithm, which is actually good. There's only Nix vector, and they just replay the same event. There is no randomness in the calculation. If you repeat it 10 times, then NS3 just repeats the same setup 10 times. You will not get any other variation, or you will not get any other output than other than what happened n minus 1. And it takes a lot of time for the network to converge, and it's not as realistic. And there is no load balancing, no TCP representation of any sort. So what we did, we took this limitation, we fixed it. Since NS3 it's difficult to fix it because at every version it changes, we had to come up with a Python simulation framework. So this was an ML-based simulation framework with almost functionalities with 10 raised to 6, which can actually have 10 raised to 6 servers, can actually handle 10 raised to 7 floors, and these are actually specifically meant for data center configurations. Now, this simulation framework we have actually publicly published in GitHub. Everybody can take a look at it. And test out your ideas if you have any trouble, if you want to do research in this. So I'm not going to spend time on explaining every part of the analogous to NS3. We put some reasonable assumption. number of pods, number of servers, packet size, all this were reasonable. And the type of communication, we had UDP, we have TCP. So here in MS3, the fundamental unit of transmission was packet. So we can go to packet. We went ahead and did flows. So in UDP, so in my frame solution framework, the fundamental unit of traffic is basically flows. So I just went ahead and said UDP and TCP. So the difference between UDP and TCP in the mathematical way is TCP will take longer for a traffic because TCP can identify if there's a traffic drop and there will be some retransmission. So that was actually embedded in our work. And there are some data rates for different types of link. Depending upon the use of the link, we have several parameters. We have chosen a Python way of conducting or figuring out random number. The application was still on off, but the routing protocol here we call it as uniform. Why we call it as uniform is because in a data center network, the simulation architecture is basically symmetric. So you don't really have to figure out which is the shortest route because all the path will constitute equal amount of will cost equal. So if you just have to uniformly spread the traffic across, and that would actually load balance the whole network. Now we took so as a solution started, we took some reasonable assumption. We had this is the mathematical assumption. We assumed the elephant flows to have Pareto distribution. There is a whole literature behind it. And for mice flows, we assume it to be the service type to be exponential. Then we assume at some rate this traffics are arriving, and we plotted the bandwidth versus time graph of a particular link, random link which we chose, and we are happy with this because we can see this is a proof of concept stating that there is enough randomness in here, and I'll tell you why we are happy with this in the following slides. So now, since we now know that this is working, this graph, there is sufficient randomness here because every time we run, there is the graph changes. We wanted to actually scale them to a point where it's realistic. So there was no. So I think another problem with working on data center is that the data center, the community, the networking community, at least people in the industry, do not publish the data sets of how they use data center because it contains secret information or private information, which are which are company policy, which cannot be published outside. So the only data which we have is 2015 Facebook data set, and we had to get some parameters from them. So there are a lot of this Facebook data set is the only data set which we have. Let me explain to you the basics. There is a lot of information in there. I'll explain only very few information which are necessary for us. So the data was collected for one period of time, and what we got a PCAP file, which is called as the packet capture. We contain the features such as timestamp, source and the IP destination and port address, and the length of the packet. And the sampling rate is pretty high. So it's like in one packet among 30,000 packets would be chosen. So you can think how loosely sampled it is, and we will not get much information from it. And they also have published 3 different clusters. So each cluster has their own utilization, and they have given us 3 clusters, and which we have chosen web servers because we have a heuristic because we know how web servers work. Because web servers because most of the data would be coming outside the data center, and we can easily construct it. It's not difficult at all. So using the features timestamp and source IP destination packet length, we can calculate the inter-arrival time of the flows. We can actually calculate number of flows and also estimate the bandwidth of the simulation. Using these parameters, we came back. We can actually run the simulation one more time, but the scale goes. There's another reason also why in 2015, along with the data set, they have also published some graphs. So even though they have only published low sample data set, if they had access to high sample data set or PCAP file, and have published how the web server flow duration. And you can see that on top left corner of the graph, it's actually the log scale of the flow duration. So when you convert it into normal scale, you can see on the right, it actually looks like the graphs of a scaled version of negative exponential function 1 minus e raised to minus x. So now this gave our heuristic that the web server the duration of web server is actually exponential, or the parameters is actually exponentially is actually true. So we got not a strong proof, but we got enough clarity that we were in the right track. So our assumption for choosing mice flow to be exponential was actually a good suggestion. Now, after figuring out the parameters, these are some parameters. You don't have to go through it, but trust me with this, and we went ahead, changed the parameters as per our estimation. We fixed everything. We fixed the bandwidth of the links, bandwidth of the duration, bandwidth, and the arrival rate of individual flows, and we got this. Now we are happy with this. So why are we happy with this? We can see that there is a limit of the flows, and the flows, if the flows cross a particular capacity, then there is a retransmission. Or since this graph is over 10 raised to 4 seconds, we are unable to see the retransmission. But trust me, the software works. You can try to use that. And we are also happy because this is the 2015 paper which published the graph. So you can see on the top right corner, it's web server. This is over the 100 seconds or 120 seconds. So and you can see the cache follower and digital follower. These are different clusters, and we somehow our mathematical modeling was able to model the data center for even for short period of time. Now that's a great achievement because nowhere we were actually able to actually come up with a mathematical model for data center, and we are unable to prove or show to the community, to the community, that we have a framework we can actually match what you are doing. So our math is going to start work if you just trust on us, because most of the time you can see most of the eminent papers comes out on networking. The industry people, they do not implement them. They say that okay, it's not useful for us because when it comes to large scale, this does not work. So this was a very huge breakthrough for at least us, because our mathematical framework started making sense, and it was actually what actually happens in practice. Now let's see the conclusion of my first work for the simulation framework we proposed. So we can see that the elephant and mice flow, these two types of flows are sufficient to simulate the traffic which mimics data center. And our simulation framework has uniform routing. I have not included the graph here, but in my thesis it is there, where we can actually see the number of flows through the links, and we have, after a particular number of flows, the law of large numbers kicks in, and you can see that the load is equally balanced. And the convergence delay is completely eliminated because the fundamental unit of traffic we have changed from packets to flows. So we don't have to worry about road packets or a convergence delay because everything works out. It is good. And this framework is based on Monte Carlo simulation. That's it. Every time you rerun the simulation, you get different results. And this also means that you really don't have to change any parameter like chemistry. We can actually the probabilistic way of we can actually run simulations which require some probability. Now, if I just stop there and say that take this simulation framework and be happy with it, in networking community nobody will be happy because there is no way we can test this theory in practice. So what I did was that, or what our team did was that, we went ahead, found out a traffic generator which is strong enough to actually generate very high traffic generator. This is an open source project by Cisco. So it had minor problem. We fixed them, and we also created a tutorial for them stating that how to use them. And as I mentioned earlier, we actually created elephant and mice flow, and we also created a Mininet framework, a small setup where you can actually test out this elephant and mice flows going simultaneously. This elephant, so what happens is that in future, or if we get a chance to go to any data center, or even in IAC or anywhere, you have access to data center, you can actually install this T-Rex, which is just over 200 MB software which you can install, and if you get access to the network card, you can actually push so much of data and test out this theory ourselves. In other ways, you have to also understand why this is important, because you can actually think of IXIA or IX load, which is used by Cisco or any other companies to test their load. It's actually costly. It almost costs like 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs for the collection of traffic. So what T-Rex does is that T-Rex gives you free source of all this traffic. And along with, so T-Rex do not give you all the traffic. T-Rex only give you some simple traffic, What we went ahead and we actually went ahead. We copied or we extracted few flows which are relevant, such as Google web page or online transaction or some file download. We extracted out the similar flows and we optimize them in such a way that you can reuse them using T-Rex. So uh, so that when you get access to in your mission study or actual data set, you can use this and to test out what we told or for your own purposes, because we expect elephant and mice flow to be there for a pretty long time, and that's the best way to test out your data center and to give the client more higher service level agreements, because that's how softwares or how data centers are sold to the company, sold to the consumers. So the better if you if any other person, if a normal person wants to start a startup and want to test out their data center, they should have some open source way of testing out the data center before buying the software which can actually test it. So we actually wanted to even support them. That's why we came up with this, and we are actively working on adding new flows. So let me just explain the unoptimized and optimized view. T-Rex gives you a method to actually multiply or increase the rate at which you can send traffic. So the traffic which they gave, when I say they, T-Rex gave, the maximum at which we could send the traffic was 112 MB per second. You can see on the top. So what when we captured the traffic, the rate at which we captured, it was 200. Let's see Google with it was 200 kilobytes per second. But after optimization, and when we mapped out the rate at which you can push, we were able to increase the rate at which we can send the packets as compared to the maximum rate at which the other packets, the all pre-existing traffic, were able to send. So we were also happy with these results because we were able to max out the rate at which the traffic could be sent. Now, when we see Google Web as an online transaction, this could be actually thought as a mice flow, and you can see about RAR file 10 MB and 50 MB downloads that can be considered as elephant flows. Now we went ahead and tested out our theory on figure A, figure B, and figure C. So figure A, we can see the client is outside, server is inside. This can be thought as inter data center, because the traffic is coming from outside the data center. It can be either another data center or actually a client. And what you can see B, what you see here, it's the traffic and the client and server is within the network itself. So you can think of this as intra data center communication, and over the right is the mixture of intra and inter. So this is basically a very simple way of stating, because if you scale the minute topology higher, my laptop or server crashes. But for any reason, if you're able to pull out more resources, we can do extensively research and come up with lot more resources. So I think I'm out of time. I also wanted to show you the final result of how we can actually do it. So Swati, Vakki, do I have like 3 more minutes?
Yeah, you can continue for 5 more minutes.
Okay. So in case nobody believes me that it can actually be done, that's why I have recorded how it has been constructed and show that also. But you see here, this window is basically a Wireshark. Wireshark is a networking tool that can be used to capture traffic from a network, from any server, any point. You give the node or the Ethernet port or any device which you want the Wireshark to listen. It will just bring out and tell you what are the traffic going through it. So that is VH0. That's the name of the device. You can see the H1, host 1, which is Mininet host as the server, and H2 as the client. So whatever you see here is constructed by me. You can see on the left, this one is the server, actual server, and this is the console where you can actually talk to the server. So these two are actually given by the T-Rex itself, but this console where you can see all the information about what is the rate at which packets are arriving or being sent, the traffic blocked, all of them are this dashboard is created by me. So on the left, I am actually going to send we have started the server, for traffic to be sent, the web page, Google web page to be sent. And we can see even though server started, we have not seen any traffic. And I came to the client, and I'm going to start the client. Now, as soon as the client started, we can see traffic on the server and the client. Let me pause here and see the rate here. So the rate at which the server is sending data is 433, and the rate at which the client is receiving is actually 16 kilobytes per second. Now, can anyone guess why is the difference between the rate at which the server and clients are sending data? Anybody want to take a guess? It's okay. I'll answer myself. So the reason why the server and clients are having so different is that when the server has to actually send data, large amount of data, the client just have to. So this is TCP data, right? So in the TCP traffic flow, the client only has to acknowledge the packets. So only ACK acknowledge when packets are sent for a lot of traffic being sent by the server. And you can see that's the reason why the ratio of server to client traffic is actually very different. And that's it. I think I'm almost done. I'll also show this is the reason. This is the PCAP file of. You can actually see a lot of different traffic having packets have been sent from one node to another node. TLS is actually like the encryption algorithm that starts before an HTTP, because it's a web-based HTTP protocol. And you can also see 41699. This is one port. 41766 another port. All of them are actually sending data, sending traffic to the 443, which is actually HTTP TCP receive port. And that's it. So this is my work. That's the talk. If you guys have any doubts, any query, because we want more people to come and join our networking research community, please shoot. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Vidhu, for this very interesting talk about traffic and data center networks. So, does anybody have any questions? You may go ahead and ask.
Yeah, actually, can I leave? 1 second. Okay, just give me a second. Just give me a second.
Vidhu, you can stop sharing the screen.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. If anyone has any doubts, please shoot. We can ask any doubts. It doesn't matter what is the standard. Anything regarding networks, we are open, because we don't have a lot of people working on networking. And actually, networking is considered to be the biology of electronics and department, because it's very difficult to get results or to have a better understanding of this. So you can ask anything that comes up in your mind.
So, it does not look like there are any other questions.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Please, you can talk to me offline also. Thanks everyone for attending my talk. Thanks, Varki and Swati for.
Yeah, Vidhu, one second. Varki,
sure.
can you present that plug? Yeah, I can see your screen. So, Varki, thank you once again, and please accept this memento on behalf of IEEE, IISc, ComSoc, and SPS chapters. And we wish you all the very best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.